I thought Meredith was my friend. For 14 months, she sat 3 feet away from me, brought me coffee, and asked about my weekend. And for 14 months, she was systematically destroying my career behind my back. When I finally found her notebook, the one she accidentally left in the conference room, I realized just how calculated her manipulation had been. Every single page was about me. I started at Whitmore Financial Services in January of 2022. I was hired as a senior account coordinator, which meant I managed relationships with our mid-tier clients, while reporting directly to Marcus Chen, the regional director. It was a step up from my previous job, better pay, better title, and honestly, it felt like the professional fresh start I desperately needed after a rough few years. On my very first day, Meredith Sullivan introduced herself before I even found my desk. She was another senior account coordinator, same level as me, and she seemed genuinely warm. She had this infectious smile and this way of making you feel like you'd known her forever. "You're going to love it here," she said, handing me a latte. "Marcus is tough but fair, and the team is solid. Let me know if you need anything. My desk is right there." For the first few months, Meredith was my lifeline. She explained the unwritten rules, warned me about office politics, and even covered for me once when I was late because of a car accident on the highway. I genuinely considered her a friend. But looking back, I can see the cracks now, the subtle things I dismissed. Like how she'd always ask very specific questions about my projects. "What's your strategy for the Henderson account?" she'd say casually, and I'd tell her everything, because why wouldn't I? We were teammates. Or how she'd sometimes say things like, "Oh, Marcus seemed a little frustrated with your presentation today, but I'm sure it's fine." When I'd check with Marcus, he'd say it was great. I thought maybe she was just being paranoid on my behalf. The first real sign something was wrong came about 7 months in. I had been working on landing the Garrett Industries account for weeks. I'd built the relationship, done the pitch, and they were ready to sign. But when the official announcement went out, Meredith's name was on the deal as the primary coordinator. I went to Marcus immediately. "There must be a mistake," I said. "I've been the point person on Garrett since the beginning." Marcus frowned. "Well, Meredith told me you asked her to take over because you were overwhelmed with your current workload. She said you were struggling." My stomach dropped. "That's not true. I never said that." He looked uncomfortable. "Well, she's been keeping me updated on the account for the past 3 weeks. She has all the documentation." I was speechless. I had no idea she'd been sending him updates. I had no idea she'd told me I was struggling. When I confronted Meredith privately, she looked genuinely hurt. "I was trying to help you," she said, her eyes wide. "I thought I was doing you a favor." She made me feel crazy. She made me feel like I was the one being ungrateful. So I apologized. I actually apologized to the woman who had just stolen my account. After that, I started paying closer attention. And the more I watched, the more I noticed. Meredith had a pattern. She would befriend people, learn their weaknesses, and then subtly use that information to position herself as the hero while making them look incompetent. She did it to a junior analyst named Kevin, who ended up quitting after Marcus put him on a performance improvement plan, based largely on concerns Meredith had raised privately. She did it to a contractor named Luis, who was let go after Meredith mentioned he seemed distracted and not fully committed. And she was doing it to me. Over the next several months, I started documenting every conversation, every email, every instance where Meredith's version of events didn't match reality. But the problem was she was smart. She never put anything incriminating in writing. All her manipulation happened in private conversations with Marcus, behind closed doors, in moments I couldn't witness. My relationship with Marcus deteriorated. He started questioning my judgment, second-guessing my decisions. Once, he called me into his office and said, "Multiple people have raised concerns about your attitude lately." "Who?" I asked. "I can't say, but I need you to be more of a team player." I knew exactly who had raised those concerns, but I couldn't prove it. By month 12, I was seriously considering quitting. My confidence was shattered. I second-guessed everything I did. I'd lay awake at night replaying conversations, trying to figure out what I'd done wrong. Then came the promotion announcement. There was an opening for team lead, a step up that I had been working towards since I started. I applied, interviewed well, and felt cautiously optimistic. But when the email came out, Meredith got the position. I was devastated, but what broke me was what Marcus said when I asked for feedback. Honestly, he said, leaning back in his chair, there have been ongoing concerns about your reliability and your ability to collaborate. Meredith specifically mentioned several instances where you dropped the ball or created conflict with clients. I need someone I can trust in this role. Every word was a lie. Every single accusation was fabricated, but I had no way to prove it. Meredith had been whispering poison into Marcus's ear for over a year, and I had nothing concrete to fight back with. I went home that night and cried for 3 hours straight. I felt like I was losing my mind. Maybe I really was the problem. Maybe I really was difficult to work with. 2 weeks later, everything changed. It was a Thursday afternoon. We had a team meeting scheduled in conference room B, and I arrived early to set up. That's when I saw it, a small spiral notebook tucked between the wall and the radiator. It must have slipped off the table. I picked it up, assuming it was someone's project notes, but when I opened it, I saw my name on almost every single page.
Okay, I have to stop here because this was the moment my entire world shifted. I'm holding this notebook and I'm seeing my own name written over and over again, and my hands are literally shaking. Tell me, what would you have done? Subscribe if you think I should have taken this straight to HR right then. Drop a comment if you think I should have confronted her first, because what I found in those pages, I still get chills thinking about it. Let me tell you what she wrote.
The notebook was Meredith's, and it wasn't just random notes. It was a detailed, strategic plan to sabotage my career. Page after page, she had written out scripts, actual scripts of things she planned to say to Marcus about me. Mention that she seemed flustered during the client call, suggest she might be overwhelmed, bring up the Henderson situation again, reinforce that she can't handle pressure. Tell Marcus I've noticed other team members avoiding her. There were dates, there were names, there were bullet points of my personal information, things I had told her in confidence, with notes on how to weaponize them. She'd written that I was going through a difficult time with my family and added, use this to suggest instability if needed. I felt physically sick. But the worst part, the part that made me see red, was a page near the back. It was titled Phase 3 Termination Strategy. She had written out a plan to escalate her complaints to HR, claiming I had created a hostile work environment. She was going to accuse me of bullying her. She was planning to get me fired, and she'd been building the foundation for over a year. I took photos of every single page. Then I put the notebook back exactly where I found it. I needed to think. That night, I barely slept. Part of me wanted to march into Marcus's office the next morning and expose everything, but I knew that wouldn't work. Marcus was already under Meredith's spell. He'd probably accuse me of fabricating evidence or being paranoid. I needed a smarter approach. The next day, I went to HR, but I didn't go with accusations. I went with questions. I told the HR director, Patricia, that I wanted to understand the company's policies around workplace bullying and documentation of employee concerns. I mentioned that I felt I had been unfairly evaluated and wanted to know what recourse I had. Patricia was professional, but guarded. She said she'd look into my file and get back to me. 2 days later, she called me into her office. Her demeanor had changed completely. She said, I've reviewed your personnel file, and I've noticed some inconsistencies in how concerns have been documented about you. Several complaints seem to originate from a single source, and they're all verbal reports with no corroborating evidence. I stayed calm. I have some documentation I'd like to share with you. Photos of a notebook I found in the conference room. I believe it might explain those inconsistencies. When Patricia saw the photos, her face went pale. She excused herself, made a phone call, and came back with the company's legal counsel. Over the next 2 weeks, a formal investigation was launched. They interviewed multiple employees, including Kevin, who had quit, and Lewis, who had been let go. Both of them confirmed they'd experienced similar manipulation from Meredith. They'd just never been able to prove it. Meredith was called into HR on a Tuesday morning. I wasn't present for the meeting, but I heard later that when they confronted her with the notebook, she completely broke down. She tried to claim I had planted it, fabricated it, that it was a setup, but her own handwriting, her own detailed plans, her own words betrayed her. She was terminated that afternoon for workplace harassment, manipulation, and creating a hostile work environment. The notebook was evidence of premeditated harm, and the company's legal team wanted her gone before she could cause any more damage. But that wasn't the end. Marcus was called into a meeting with the VP of operations. He wasn't fired, but he was formally reprimanded for failing to verify complaints and allowing bias to influence his management decisions. He was required to undergo leadership training, and his path to promotion was effectively frozen. He never apologized to me directly, but about a month later, he sent me an email that said, "I should have asked more questions. I'm sorry you went through this." It wasn't enough, but it was something. As for me, the company offered me the team lead position that Meredith had taken. I turned it down, not because I didn't want it, but because I had already accepted a better offer at a competing firm. The investigation had validated everything I'd experienced, and my confidence was slowly returning. But I didn't want to stay somewhere that had allowed this to happen for 14 months. On my last day, Patricia from HR pulled me aside. "You handled this with more grace than most people would have. I'm sorry we didn't catch it sooner." I thanked her, and then I walked out of that building for the last time. Looking back, what haunts me most isn't the manipulation itself. It's how close she came to winning. If she hadn't forgotten that notebook, I would have been the one in HR defending myself against fabricated accusations. I would have been the one fired. Meredith was a narcissist who saw everyone around her as competition to be eliminated. She was charming, calculating, and completely remorseless, and she almost destroyed my career without ever raising her voice or leaving a digital trail. If you're in a situation where a coworker seems too interested in your projects, too quick to mention your struggles to leadership, too friendly while everything around you keeps falling apart, trust your instincts. Document everything, and don't assume HR will connect the dots without help. Some people don't want to collaborate. They want to conquer, and they'll smile at you the entire time they're sharpening the knife.
Thank you so much for listening to my story. If this resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And if you've ever dealt with a workplace narcissist, a manipulative coworker, or a situation where someone tried to sabotage your career, I want to hear about it. Drop your story in the comments or send it to us directly. It might be featured in a future video. Take care of yourselves out there, and I'll see you in the next one.